7.4, finding zeros, factoring quadratics with a leading coefficient greater than 1. Grab a note sheet, please. So, like I've already said, we are going to factor just like how we factored back in 6.9. So 6.9 was the very last section in Chapter 6, and it is a section that some of us did great on and some of us gave up by the time we got there. So if you are one of those people that gave up by the time we got to the end of Chapter 6, here's what I need you to do. I need you to recognize that we are nowhere close to the end of Chapter 7, and it's too early in the unit to give up. So if you didn't know what was going on in 6.9, instead of saying, hey, I didn't know what's going on, I can't do this, say, hey, I didn't know what was going on, so I need to put forth even more effort right now to figure out what's going on. So, anywho, these steps are literally copied and pasted back from something in Chapter 6. It says, find two numbers that multiply to AC and add to B. We use this X to organize our thinking there. So two numbers that multiply to AC, add to B. Once we figure out what those two mystery numbers are, we split our middle term using those numbers, and we can factor by grouping. And then the new part of today is we're going to set each factor equal to 0, and we're going to solve both. So I put the X on there so you can see what the X looks like. I put the table of when we're positive and negative on there. We've got 2 examples on notes, and then we're going to do one on your assignment together. Just get started off on that assignment on a good note. Any questions before we get started? Okay, so the first thing that I like to do is I like to label A, B, and C. So in this problem, A is 2, B is 17, and C is 21. And then I am going to draw that X to organize my thinking. Okay, so I have to multiply together to be A times C. So in this problem, A times C is 2 times 21. So that's going to be 42. I need to multiply together to be 42. And then I need to add together to be 17. So that's the first thing I've got there. We need to find the numbers that satisfy that multiply to 42 and add to 17. Since this one's plus plus, we're going to be looking for numbers that are both positive, so we don't need to worry about signs here. So with that, numbers that multiply together to be 42, I'm going to do it off in the margin here. You can do it wherever you got space. Are 1 and 42. 2 and 21. 3 and 14. And if I didn't know these factors off the top of my head, I can grab a calculator and say 42 divided by 3. And then I would grab a calculator and say 42 divided by 4. That one doesn't work. 42 divided by 5. That one doesn't work. And then my last set is 6 and 7. So those are all of my factors. Okay. Any questions about those factors? Okay. Which one of those pairs add together to be 17? 3 and 14, because 14 and then 15, 16, 17. So those are my two numbers I am going to use, is 3 and 14. So now that I've picked 3 and 14, I am ready for step 2 up there above. Well, they're not labeled, but the second bullet point, which is to split my middle term using those numbers. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite my problem, but instead of having 2x squared plus 17x, 2x squared is going to stay the same. And then I'm going to split it up into plus 3x plus 14x. And then the 21 stays the same as well. So I split up the 17 here This stayed the same. This stayed the same. So my first and my third term stay the same, and my middle term splits up. Don't write huge because we have a lot of stuff we need to do. I'm trying not to write huge, but just as we're going through this, don't write huge because we still have to solve things for 0. Hey, any questions right now? All right, so we are going to factor by grouping then. So factoring by grouping, I need group 1, group 2. My first group, I'm going to divide 2x squared and 3x. I'm going to divide those both by x. Because 2 and 3, I can't divide anything out, but I can divide out an x. So I'm going to divide out an x. 2x squared divided by x just leaves behind 2x. And then 3x divided by x leaves behind the 3. Okay? And then 14x and 21. I can divide 14 and 21 both by 7. So I will do that. So I'll put plus 7. 14 divided by 14 divided by 7 is 2. I still have that x. And then 21 divided by 7 is 3. And then that right there is the magic of factoring by grouping, because this and this are the same, which is what I want. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a sec. People to catch up, people to see if they have any questions. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so we write our answer as our matching guy, so that 2x plus 3. And then our other pair, which is our GCF. So this is going to be the x plus 7, and this, or the x and the 7. So it's going to be x plus 7. I have not drank enough coffee yet today. I usually drink my coffee on the way to work, and I didn't today. I brought it with me. I'm not sure. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay. Here is our very last step then. We are going to take each of these factors. This is the new part. So everything we've done up until here is exactly what we did in 6.9. Here is the new part. We are going to take each of those factors. We're going to set them equal to 0 and solve. So we're going to set 2x plus 3 equal to 0, and we're going to set x plus 7 equal to 0. So I'm going to write down 2x plus 3 equals 0 right here. I'm going to write x plus 7 equals 0 right here. Once we get to this point on these problems, the equations sometimes are going to be easy to solve, sometimes they're going to be a little bit more work. Let's do that x plus 7 one first, because that one's going to be easier to solve. So to get x by itself, we'll subtract 7 from both sides, and we'll get x equals negative 7. So that's my first answer, is that x equals negative 7. That's actually my second answer. I put it on the second line. Okay. Our other problem is not going to solve out to be a whole number, so pay attention to what we want you to do with it. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides, and we'll get 2x equals negative 3. And then we're going to divide both sides by 2. And we're going to get x equals negative 3 halves. And we are going to leave that as an improper fraction. We do not want to change it to negative 1.5. We do not want to change it to negative 1.5. Leave it as a fraction, negative 3 halves. Okay, questions right now? You don't need the code, just go quick. I know you're going out. I can remember that. Okay, so to review the steps, we pick the numbers in our x that multiply to 42 and add to 17. We use those numbers to split our middle term. We factor by grouping. And then we set each of our factors equal to 0 and solve. We are going to have a lot of time to work on this today. We just need you guys to be resilient and gritty and push through and keep putting forth effort. So we've got one more we're going to do on the notes, and then we are actually going to do one on your assignment together to give you guys a head start. So flip this over. We've got 3x squared minus 8x plus 4. I'm going to label my A, B, and C. I'm going to do it above this time, though, which is what I normally do. I don't know why I didn't do that on the last one. On this one, pay attention. B is negative 8, not positive 8. Okay, draw my big X. We need to multiply together to be AC. And this one, A times C is going to be 3 times 4, which is 12. So multiply together to be 12. And we need to add together to be negative 8. Pay attention to that negative there. Okay. Off to the side or wherever, or if you need to, we can list out our multiples of 12. Our multiples of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Okay. Then you guys can flip back to that table. On that table, I'll just get a different copy. On that table, minus plus means we need to pick two numbers that are both negative. So we are going to make all of our numbers negative. Once we make all of our numbers negative, which ones of those add together to be negative 8? 2 and 6. So if you just pick the ones that add together to be positive 8, and then you make them both negative. So it's going to be negative 2 and negative 6. Yes, we'll put the x's on them when we split. Okay, so 3x squared, you leave that the same. And then we're going to split my negative 8x into minus 2x minus 6x. A question I got on the test a lot was, could I do minus 6x minus 2x? You could. It doesn't matter. You'll get the same answer in the long run. I just put them in order. I always put the smallest one first, just because that's the order we write our factor pairs in, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Any questions about splitting? Okay, it is time to factor then. So we've got 3x squared and minus 2x. 3 and negative 2 can't divide anything by them, but we can divide out an x. Divide out an x out of these first two. 3x squared divided by x is 3x. Negative 2x divided by x is negative 2. Okay. When I'm looking at my second pair, I can divide 6 and 4. I can divide those both by 2. But since it's negative 6x, anytime that third term is negative, we want to divide out a negative 2. So I'm going to divide out by negative 2 here. 6x, or negative 6x divided by negative 2, is going to be positive 3x. And then 4 divided by negative 2 is going to be negative 2. And then that's where the magic happens, because 3x minus 2 and 3x minus 2 match. So that means my factored answer is 3x minus 2. And then it's always going to be the GCFs, so the x and the minus 2 here. Okay. We can set each of those factors equal to 0. So we're going to have 3x minus 2 equals 0. We'll have x minus 2 equals 0. And we solve each of them. 3x minus 2 equals 0. We can add 2 to both sides. And we'll get 3x equals 2. And then we'll divide both sides by 3. We'll get x equals 2/3, and we're going to leave it as a fraction. Do not make it a decimal. Leave it as a fraction. Because fractions are exact answer, decimals are rounded. And this other one, we can add 2 to both sides. We'll get x equals 2. All right. Let's go ahead. I'm going to pause the video for a second. Hello again, recording. And we are going to do the second problem together. The reason why we're doing the second one and not the first one is this one's plus plus. We've already done a plus plus one. I want to do one with a negative c value. So I'm going to zoom in here, if I can. Zoom, 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 zoom. And we're going to do this one. 6x squared plus 5x minus 6. We are doing a problem on your assignment. If you do not do this problem with us, you are like saying, I care so little that I am not even willing to write down the problem that you're giving us the answer to. That's what you're telling us. All right, so make your big X. This is my A. This is my B. This is my C. I need to multiply together to be AC. So in this problem, A times C is 6 times negative 6. 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. So I need to multiply together to be negative 36. And I need to add together to be 5. So multiply to negative 36, add together to be 5. Whenever I print these and then I cut them in half, the margins always get weird. So I'm going to write my factors over here. Write them wherever you've got space for them. My factors of 36, there's a lot of them, are 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 5 doesn't work because I know it has to end in a 5 or a 0 for 5 to work, and then 6 and 6. Okay. Questions about factors of 36?
No, but do you want to change those bigger numbers to negative?
No. I actually want to change the smaller ones to negative because that was going to be the next thing. You're ahead of me. Okay, so see how this is plus minus? If you go look in the table on your notes, plus minus is the very bottom row. We want one number to be positive and one number to be negative because we need to multiply to be a negative number. And then since we need to add together to be positive, the big ones, the more powerful ones, stay positive, make the little ones negative. Then, once we've made the little ones negative, which of those pairs adds together to be 5? What? Negative 4 and 9. Because if you just think about it this way, 9 minus 4 is 5. You can think about it as subtraction. So negative 4 and 9. Okay. So then that means that middle term splits up into minus 4x plus 9x. So my first term stays the same, 6x squared. Then I've got minus 4x plus 9x minus 6. And the reason why we're allowed to do that is negative 4x plus 9x. We can combine like terms and get back to 5x. So we're uncombining like terms, essentially. Okay, we can factor by good old grouping. So factoring by grouping, 6x squared and 4x, we can divide those both by 2, and we can divide an x out. 2x. That's going to leave behind 6x squared divided by 2x. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then x squared divided by x leaves behind one of those x's. So we got 3x. And then negative 4x divided by 2. X is negative 2. Because negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And then x divided by x divides out. Okay. And then for the 9x and the negative 6, what can we divide 9 and 6 both by? 3. So we can divide out a 3 here. 9x divided by 3 is going to be 3x. Negative 6 divided by 3 is going to be negative 2. And then my factored answers are 3x minus 2 and 2x plus 3. Right. Before we set each of those equal to 0 and then go look at our answer bank, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so 3x minus 2 equals 0. I can add 2 to both sides, and that's going to give me 3x equals 2. And I can divide both sides by 3. And that's going to give me x equals 2/3 is going to be my first answer. For my other answer, I've got 2x plus 3 equals 0. I would subtract 3 from both sides, and I'll get 2x equals negative 3. And then I'll divide both sides by 2. And I'll get x equals negative 3/2. There's going to be lots of 2s and 3s and like 1s and 3s on today's answers. I'm telling you that in order to have things that work that aren't like, I'm going to white out this and write it nicer. In order to have things that work that aren't like ridiculously huge numbers, you're going to see a lot of numbers again and again, just FYI. So we've got 2/3 and negative 3/2. Then if I were you, I would go make sure that those were on my answer bank and cross them off, and then I would move on. So that is today's lesson. Is it challenging? Yes. Is it possible and attainable? Yes. We would not give it to you if it wasn't something that A, you needed to know how to do, and B, we have been specifically asked to teach you how to do. So we wouldn't give it to you if it was rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's just math. Okay, so 2/3 and negative 3/2. I'll flip this back over, but they go in order from least to greatest. So negative 3/2, you can cross that off, and then 2/3, you can cross that off. And you should use each of those answer choices once. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording for the last and final time. And we have a significant amount of time for you guys to just work through this. So get started working. Get me and Miss Burgess as you go.